Okay, so you've got a good understanding of the philosophy behind our budgeting or how we budget. Now we want to move into setting up your banking structure. Okay, let me be clear. Your banking structure is the most important part of your budgeting. Okay, your banking structure needs to be set up so that it makes it easy for you to adhere to your budget. This is how we automate your budgeting is by setting up our accounts in such a way that our money is allocated automatically to where it needs to go. And we're essentially setting limits that are in line with our budget. And as long as we stay within those confines and those limits or in those accounts, we're going to be on budget. We're going to be successful. This gives you on the screen is an example of what a typical banking structure that I would set up for a family. Okay, that's got a home loan, things like that. Pretty much the basis. If you don't have kids, then we'll remove some of the accounts. Some might not be relevant, like the kids account on here, but the whole premise will stay pretty much the same. Okay, you may need to add some accounts into here depending on your objectives. You may need to remove some, just depending on your circumstances. Okay, but the general idea will be the same as what we're looking here. Okay, so I'm going to run you through this quickly, then we'll talk about each individual account and how we allocate funds around. I'll also touch quickly on sort of what type of accounts that you may use for each one of these, so you get a good understanding of how we'd set it up. When we get to the next stage and we actually look at building your actual budget, our budgeting spreadsheet will have the amounts and things like that, and we'll separate it into what you need to allocate for each account so it makes it easy for you. So let's just look at what accounts that we need and why we need them and how this all works to keep you on budget. Okay, so first of all, we've got our income. Okay, whatever the source is, it's going to come in, might be husband and wife wages, salary, whatever. Where we're going to allocate those is into our main account. Sorry, is into our main account. Okay, this typically a main account or our bills account. It's the workhorse of our banking structure. Okay, all our funds go into our main account, and from that main account, everything is dispersed out of there. Okay, you will maybe need to leave a bit of a balance in there initially as you're starting up, just depending how your cash flow is or what bills and stuff come out. That it may not, if you've got a lot of bills come out in the next couple of months, then it might deplete and go back to zero. So it's a good idea to start it with a $5,000 or something like that in there, which you've probably already got anyway in your account. The easiest way to set up this banking structure is for your current bank account that you use to receive your income and pay your direct debit bills. That account is now your main account. And you're going to set up other offshoot accounts from that one. Okay. So the main account you use now, keep that as your main account so that you don't have to go and change all your direct debits and where your employer's putting your income. Okay. So your main account is the main account that you use now. Now, from this main account, we have in red coming out are our bills. We also have coming out our home loan, and we also have coming out other debts if you have them. How we set up those bills, home loan and other debts, is we want to break it down to a weekly repayment or a weekly amount. You're not going to be able to do this for everything. So for car registration, things like that, that's going to be yearly amounts. The amounts for those are going to be stored in your main account. So that main account will build up some balance each year. Okay. When we set up the actual budget, the will be surplus savings will be removed from the main account. So there will not be extra money in your main account for you to spend. It will be 100% allocated to your bills. So you cannot spend extra from your main account. If you spend extra from your main account, you will not have enough when your registration or your other bills come around. I must make that point very clear. So, bills, electricity, water, council rates, we need to set those up as a weekly payment. I went through it earlier. Weekly repayments, we try to make everything a weekly repayment. That way, we're breaking everything down to the lowest common denominator. That every week you're looking at your accounts, it is as close to an accurate picture of where you are financially as possible. If you are paying your rates yearly and you are 9 months through the year, if you have 2,000 in your account, is it really 2,000? Knowing that in a couple of months, you're going to have to spend 2,500 to 3,000 on your rates. It gives you a false impression. That's why we try to make our payments weekly, so that when we're looking at our account, we get a clear snapshot of what our balance sheet looks like right then and there. And it's also the reason why we use our other accounts. Okay, so the other accounts being our presence account, our holiday account, if we have children, kids accounts. Okay, presents account's pretty simple. This is for any birthdays, any Christmas gifts, also weddings and friends and families gifts. Okay, if you get invited to a lot of weddings and things like that, that can be expensive. It can build up to quite a substantial amount each year. We want to calculate what our budget is for those items, and we want to have a separate account that we use, that we store money in each week, that we can use for those events. That way, it's not coming out of your personal account, it's not coming out of your main account, it's coming out of a presence account, money that's set aside in another account for this. Depending how far away you are from Christmas or these expenses, you may need to start with may need to drop in some money into that account to get it kicked off. Okay, if it's just before Christmas, you're not going to have enough money in there built up. Okay, so we're setting up a weekly payment into our presence account, which is equal to what our budget is for those items each year. Now, when we have that expense, we pull the money from that account and we spend it. Our holiday account works the same way. We transfer a weekly amount from our main account into the holiday account that we budgeted for the holiday expenses for that year. Might be 5,000, might be 10,000 that we're allocating. You need to make your decision on that when you build your budget. But that weekly amount gets moved from your main account to your holiday account. When you go on a holiday, you're then spending that money from that account is getting spent for that expense. Okay? There's two purposes for that. One is that it's not sitting in your main account that you think you can spend it. It's not sitting in a savings account that you're going, oh, okay, well, I've built up a good amount of savings. No, because you're intending to spend it on a holiday. The other reason is that it gives you kind of a budget to work towards. Okay? If you've got 2,000 in your holiday account, you're going to try and stick to that budget. If you've just got 5,000 sitting in your main account, you're likely going to spend more on a holiday when you want to book it. So setting up the amount that we want to spend for our holidays and then physically moving money every week into that holiday account that we can use for those holidays. I also like to have a kids account. Okay? I've just put it in one here, but you can actually separate the kids account into a couple. So a kids account that I use now for education expenses, for any sports activities, things like that, swimming, team sports stuff that comes up. And then for any other kind of just regular kids' expenses or expenses that can come up. So it could be that they school excursions, could be if they play an instrument, yeah, just anything like that, that you're setting an amount there that you may have to spend it. It may not be a regular occurring expense that you spend every week, but it's an amount that comes up that you kind of is known for it. It's a good idea with this account just to, when you are putting into budget, to put a little bit more, a little bit extra in there, or over budget a little bit, just in case other things come up that you want to use that account for. Now, if you have a lot of, if your kids are in private school, things like that, you may want to separate that account, not have it all in the one account. If they do a lot of sports, you may want to separate it. But I find in majority of cases that the one kids account will be sufficient to cover us for the kids. Now, that's not a personal spending account. If you're giving your children allowances, things like that, that's not for that. This is for expenses that you pay for your child, those larger expenses. Clothing and stuff like that wouldn't really be classified in this account. Usually that would be kind of in our everyday account. Um, but if you found that, yeah, you were not buying clothes regularly, that maybe, yeah, you wait till the end of the year and you buy a lump uh, and spend a large amount on clothes, then yeah, you could use that in that way. Just depends on what your spending habits are like with those things. Now, those three accounts that I've gone through: presidents, holiday, kids accounts. Those can be online savings accounts, high interest accounts, because you're not regularly accessing those. You don't need card access to those accounts. Okay. Your main account should be a proper bank account because you're going to have bills. You're going to need to receive income into it and you're going to pay bills out of it. So it should have a card, should be a fully functional transaction account. Your main account, though, with the card is that you don't need to carry the card on you. It's not used for everyday expenses. So you don't need the card to be on your phone or in your wallet. You can leave that one at home. Then, if you've got a bill you need to pay, you can pay for it through that. But you don't need to have access to it every time. The accounts that you do need to have access to and that you will carry the cards for, you will have them linked on your phone, are your everyday account and your personal spending account. Okay, I'll run through the everyday account first. So the everyday account is the main card that you use for all your day-to-day spending. So think groceries, think fuel, think eating out, think entertainment purposes, like weekly entertainment, stuff like that, not holidays. It is your basically spending money for the week. Okay. Remember, we're doing weekly amounts because we're breaking things down into an easy, manageable, bite-sized, bite-sized amounts so that it's easier for us to budget. So you might have every Friday that X amount of money is put into your everyday account. You do your grocery shopping, you fill your cars up, and you have your weekend, enjoy your weekend. Okay? Then you have the rest of the week where you stretch your everyday account out for your spending. Okay? The idea behind this is that you are separating your weekly budgeted amount for your living costs to your main account that you use for your bills and things like that. So you're putting yourself basically on a wage or setting yourself a limit in that account that you can spend. This is very similar to the old envelope system or the old jar system, where you would have your cash and then you'd put an amount into that you've got for spending for these things and you live out of that. It's just the modern version because no one really uses cash anymore, so everything's on card. So it's easier to have that account and use that card. So if you then transfer, let's say $600 a week into that card and you have a good weekend and you spend most of it and you've only got $50 left for the rest of the week, you need to try and stretch out until the next Friday when you get your next injection of cash into your everyday account. Okay. You will be more likely, though, to then look at that account and go, okay, there's not much in it. We need to reduce our spending for the week. This is how it really works. It puts you in control of your budget. You've set your amount up in your budget of how much you're going to spend on those items, those day-to-day items, your discretionary spending. Before you go over budget, or you're going to know when you're going over budget, because you're going to run out of funds in that account. And then you're going to have to look at it and go, okay, well, I've got to transfer more money into my everyday account if I want to do this thing. It will stop you and provide a bit of a buffer or a backstop for you then to try and make an educated decision. Do I want to spend more money? If you are living out of your main account where you've got a larger amount of money, what is there stopping you from spending more than the amount that you've allocated in your budget for the week? There's nothing. You will just spend more, and then you will tell yourself that you're going to reduce your spending in the next couple of weeks, and then you won't. You'll forget about it. If it's in your everyday account, it's in a separate account, and you set yourself that wage each week, you are less likely to go over that wage, go over that amount on those discretionary items. It's not that hard to budget from Friday to Friday. Okay, if you get to Monday, Tuesday next week and there's not much money there, okay, you'll eat what's in the fridge or what's in the pantry. You'll limit spending more money that you don't need to because you'll try and stretch it out to the next Friday. That when you get your next amount of money, next funds in that everyday account, okay, you will make better decisions with your money to try and stay on budget. Now, if you have to go over budget, as I said before, there is no surplus money in your main account. We are allocating all that money out. So you will need to pull the money from one of your other accounts. You will not be able to pull it from your kids' account. That is for your child's expenses. That's money set away. You will not be able to pull it out of your presents account unless you want to cut someone out off the Christmas list. Where you're going to have to pull it out of is either your holiday account or your personal spending account. Let me be clear. We have allocated your budget, we have allocated your funds so that everything has a purpose. So if you go over on your everyday spending, your week to week spending, it has to come from somewhere. And it can't come from a bill. It can't come from your home loan. It can't come from expenses that have to be paid for, your fixed costs. So it's going to come from your holiday account. And maybe when that expense comes over or when you're about to go over your day-to-day limit you've set for yourself each week, that you then look at before you transfer money, you look at it and you think, I'm pulling money out of my holiday account. I really wanted to go to here, and this is affecting that. I really wanted to go on this holiday. So do I really need to spend this extra money on my day-to-day discretionary items? It will allow you to make a more informed, educated decision. You will not just be spending money for the sake of spending money and then going later, oh, I probably didn't need that. I just spent it because I was there. You will make more consideration when you're making your purchases for things. You will make better financial decisions. If you don't have much money there, someone calls you to go out on a Thursday night dinner, yeah, you will make the decision. If there's not enough money in that, if you've already spent that money, you'll make the decision. Okay, do I want to pull money out of a holiday account for this? Is it that important that I do that? Maybe it is, but at least you've made the decision with a knowledge of that you're over budget and that it needs to come from somewhere else. Typically, where we see people fail is that if they are living out of that one account, when they're making their expenses, they're unknowingly spending more than what they were setting aside. They don't know that they're spending over those amounts. This whole banking structure is designed so that you know when you're going over what you've set for your discretionary amounts, and all your funds are allocated out. Things are separate. You also don't need to track things that closely. If we think about this, let's say our everyday account at $600 a week, and we spend and the next Friday comes in and we spend all the money. Okay, as long as we haven't gone over, and as long as we've put food on the table and we filled up our car and things like that, it doesn't matter where we've spent that money. If you want to buy a coffee every day, that's fine, as long as it's within your budget. You can make that work week to week, your day-to-day expenses. You can make that work in your everyday account. The only issue comes in is if you're going over. And as I said, when you go over, that's going to come from your holiday account, or it's going to come from a renovation account. It's going to come from some goal that you'd set yourself. So then you're going to think about it and go, do I really need this thing? Or does this other thing mean more to me? But you're going to knowingly make that decision. So everyday account you have a card for, your presents, holiday account, kids account, you don't need to. But when you need to spend the money for those things, so say you're going to buy a present, Christmas shopping. So what you would do is you would actually move the money from your presents account into your everyday account and make the purchase. Okay? Yeah, it's a little bit of a hassle, but it's not too bad. We've all got internet banking now. It's on our phones. So it's not hard to, when we're at the shops, looking at the item, okay, yep, it's $50 for this present, putting away, and then go and transfer the money across then and there. You can do it before you make your purchase, so you know money's gone in there. Your accounts will be at the same bank, so you'll have instant transfer from your app, from your online saver into your everyday account. So that won't be an issue. Yeah, it's just the easiest way to do it because you're keeping your present money separate. And then when you're making the purchase, you're transferring money across. Same as if a holiday, if you're about to go and book something, look at the price there, transfer the money across. It'll be instant transferred into there. And then you can go and purchase your flights, accommodation, things like that from that everyday account. But you've transferred money from your other relevant account. Same as kids' accounts, things like that. If it's a kid's expense, you've got to pay. Transfer money from your kid's account into your everyday and make the purchase. So those other ones don't need to be transaction accounts. I would recommend that they are online saver accounts because you will get a little bit of interest on those accounts. So they will build up a little bit, won't be completely wasted. Now, if you've got a home loan and your bank allows you to have multiple offset accounts, okay, which is very good, but not many banks do it, then all these accounts can be offset accounts. Okay. And if you do have a home loan and you're with one of those lenders, then yeah, I definitely recommend that all these are offset accounts because they'll all be saving you interest. If your bank doesn't offer that, then you might just have one offset account, which would usually be your main account. And then these other presents holiday accounts would be high interest accounts. Your everyday account would be a normal transaction account. Maybe that's another offset if you're allowed another offset. Then your other app call accounts are going to be your personal spending accounts. Okay, so personal spending accounts will have a card attached. Okay, it won't be a shared card, it'll be your card. So typically what I do for the families is both partners have their own personal spending account. And you can even have the children have their own personal spending account if they're of that age that you're giving them pocket money, those types of things, giving them an allowance to buy. So personal spending account. So your account is your own, and your partner has their own. It's up to you if you have access to seeing each other's accounts online. Personally, I don't, but that's up to you. You can decide that. So what that is that we set up a weekly amount to go into each partner's personal and spending accounts. And we also may have an amount that goes into the kids as well. And that's for that person's own spending. Okay. Now you can decide what goes into that account or what's spent out of that. You may put in my wife's account. She gets a little bit more money in hers because she does her hair and things like that out of it. So she's got some higher running costs from those things. Um, but yeah, set amount that you can each spend for whatever your purpose wants. Okay. You do not want your partner to be going and spending a large amount in the everyday account on something. That could derail that everyday account pretty quickly. Okay. So that everyday account that's a joint account, you've kind of got to work together on that. Your personal spending account is for all your other things. Okay. You want to buy your own clothes. You want to buy, I don't know, fishing gear. You want to, yeah, other stuff, okay, that you want to buy personally. You've got your personal spending account that you control and you can purchase with. In your budget, the personal spending amounts are set up, so you've already agreed on the amounts there. It is your chance or your opportunity to spend that personal spending account how you see fit. You're not touching money in the everyday account. So with that means that there's no guilt on you spending that money on yourself. It's your personal spending account. You can spend it how you want. There's no guilt. You're also going to have that the partners are not going to be talking about what they've each of them have spent. You can't then say, "Oh, well, you've gone and spent all this money on this thing." That's their personal spending account. They can spend that however they want. It's designed to be that each partner has their own little amount that they've got that they can save and buy a larger item or they can spend it on little things. It doesn't come into the full banking. It's in the budget, but it doesn't come into the everyday or day-to-day spending. So then it shouldn't cause any issues. You want to buy clothes with it or whatever, you want to gamble it, whatever. That's your prerogative. That's your amount that you've got for that, and you manage your own spending in that account. Okay? It's guilt-free spending for each partner. It is designed to one, give you an amount that you can go and do your own stuff for, and two, to reduce friction or reduce confrontation about money. Oh, there's not much money there. You've gone and spent $100 on this stuff, and now we don't have enough for groceries, or there's not enough in our everyday account for this. Okay, just remove it. Set up your own personal spending accounts. I see some people that they don't want to set it up. Oh, we don't need that. Just set it up. It makes life a whole lot easier when you've got your own money to spend on different things. Okay, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to go, oh, I don't want to spend money on here because I might go over the budget, or you don't want to come back and go, oh, yeah, I'm budgeting well, but my husband keeps going and spending too much money on other stuff and it just blows the budget out. Set the personal spending accounts up. That way, they're designed to reduce that friction. You can't, if he goes and spends money out of that account, you can't say anything to him. Vice versa, he can't say anything to you. It's designed for you to be guilt-free spending. It's included in your budgets, the amounts, and you can spend it how you see fit. With the children, you may set it up so that they've got an allowance that goes into that, and then the children can spend the money out of those accounts. Okay, setting up an allowance for them, they've got accounts. Uh, for those, again, they need a card. So they are transaction accounts. If your bank allows you multiple offsets, it can be an offset account. If not, it's just a transaction account that you've got access to. So the third part of this is or the final part is our long-term investments. Okay, so that's kind of separate to everything. So that's our superannuation, that's our investments, long-term investments. That might be kids' investments, things. Um, Those ones there, we just try to keep completely separate from your day-to-day banking structure. Okay, ideally, it's the investment portfolio is completely separate. Your superannuation separate. Your superannuation is separate, so you can't spend it anyway unless you're retired. But yeah, your investments in that side should be separate, different accounts, so that you can't go in and access. You can't go in and access those things. If you're going over your everyday account, it's not coming from your investment money. Your investment money is set. You've got objectives. You've got investment objectives, and that's why you're putting those long-term savings into your investments. It is not meant to come and cherry pick and pull bits out because you want to buy something extra or go on another holiday, stuff like that. That's long-term investments to provide you with more income for the long term. So hopefully that helps. You've got a good understanding around that banking structure. Again, as I said, the account that you use now should become your main account. Then you will go and set up your online saver accounts. So that'll be your presents account, your holiday account, and your kids account. You will also need to set up some transaction accounts. So you'll need to set up your everyday transaction account. Okay, you need two cards for that, one for each partner, or maybe more if you've got more partners. And you need to set up your personal spending accounts. So personal spending accounts don't need to be joint; they can just be in one person's name, so that just they've got the card for it. And in that way, you won't, when you log into your online banking, you won't be able to see your partners every day, their personal spending account. And it's a good idea, yeah, to set it up for the kids as well. You can set up some transaction account for those. The main account, yes, you will have a card for. We got once you get your everyday account and you start setting up your regular payments to these other accounts, then you'll leave that main account card at home. You don't need it. You've got access to your money through your everyday account, and it's important that that's the only account besides your personal spending that you've got access to. You don't want to have 10 different accounts, 10 different cards and that, and be able to access all these accounts. Okay? You want to have the one account that you access money for, and every time you spend, it goes through that account. If you're running out of money in that account, then you have to transfer money from one of your other accounts, which is usually a holiday account if you've gone over budget. If you're buying a present or booking your accommodation, then you'll transfer money from your presents account or your holiday account into the everyday account when you make your purchase. Okay, we're changing the whole way that you spend your money. Okay, and we're changing that whole banking structure so that we can automate everything. Your income comes into your main account, then every week money is shot out to each individual account and paid off all your bills. When you log into your internet banking and you see the amounts that are in your accounts, they are accurate. They are accurate amounts to what you're actually spending and should be in line with your budget. So if you jump in and there's 5,000 in your holiday account, okay, that's 5,000 you have set aside for holidays. If you jump in and there's 2,000 in your presents account, that's money that is set aside for presents that you've got to spend. If you log in and there's nothing in your everyday account, then you're spending too much or you're waiting for that next payment to come in. You need to curb your spending. Okay? The other accounts will kind of look after themselves. The everyday one is just the one that you've got to take control of and make sure that you stick within that budget. Okay, you're staying within the amount that you've spent every week, that you've put down that you'll spend every week in your budget that you've accounted for. If you stick to that amount, all your other amounts are worked out and are typically fixed costs. Okay, which means that you've got enough money to do your holidays, you've got enough money to get all your presents, you've got all your money to invest in the long-term things, make extra home loan repayments, those types of things. Okay, as long as you stay within the confines, you don't go over the amounts that are in those accounts, you will be on budget. It will keep you on budget.